You're here because something doesn't feel right. You haven't heard from her. No calls, no texts, just silence. But it's not the kind of silence that slams the door. She didn't block you. She didn't erase you. She's still there, quietly visible. And that quiet, it lingers. Not like an ending, but like a question you can't answer. You find yourself stuck between two possibilities. Is she gone, or is she waiting? This is where most men lose themselves, in the fog of uncertainty, interpreting every breadcrumb, every absence, every delayed story view as a signal. But what if the signal wasn't about her at all? What if this moment of silence is less about decoding her and more about finally facing you? Because silence doesn't always mean rejection. Sometimes it's her stepping back to see who you are without her, to see if you chase or if you rise. And that's what this video is about. If you've ever felt that pull, the urge to reach out just to feel something, pause. There's a different path, a path not of reaction but reflection. And if that's the path you're ready to walk, you're exactly where you need to be. Like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and stay with me. Because what you're about to hear may not just change the way you see her, it might finally change the way you see yourself. Now let's dive in. There's a kind of silence that doesn't shout, doesn't slam the door, doesn't offer final words. It just lingers. And when it comes from a woman you once shared connection with, it cuts differently. It doesn't scream rejection, it whispers doubt, confusion, uncertainty. It triggers the part of you that wants answers, closure, something to hold on to. But all you get is nothing. And in that void, most men spiral. They tell themselves she's done, that it's over, that her silence is the sound of goodbye. But that's not always true. Sometimes her silence means something else entirely, something far more complicated. Silence isn't always absence. It's not always finality. Sometimes it's a space she creates to see you more clearly, to observe you without the filter of her attention. Because a woman who once gave you her emotional energy now wants to know who you become when that energy is no longer guaranteed. You see, emotional silence isn't a verdict. It's a test. Silence isn't rejection. It might be a test of your emotional strength. She may not have let go, but she's stepping back, not to vanish, not to hurt you, but to witness something, your reaction, your frame, your discipline, your sense of self when you're no longer being pulled close. That silence, it's not passive, it's charged, with emotion, with fear, with curiosity. She might still care, but she's protecting herself. She might still miss you, but she's not ready to expose that vulnerability. So instead of speaking, she observes, and in doing so, she leaves the door open just enough for you to see her, but not enough to reach her. That's where most men fail. They see the distance and assume they must close it, that they must act, explain, or fix. But this isn't a problem to solve, it's a moment to withstand. What she's watching for isn't your effort to chase. She's watching your ability to hold stillness, to remain composed, to respond with presence, not panic. That's what makes this kind of silence so confronting, because it exposes your relationship with yourself, how quickly you seek reassurance, how desperately you need validation, and whether or not your identity was built on her attention. What she's really asking, without ever saying it, is this: who are you without me? And for many men, the answer is heartbreaking, because without her, they're lost. Their peace was never truly theirs. It depended on being seen, being wanted, being chosen. But here's the invitation buried inside her silence, the chance to meet the man you've avoided becoming, the one who stands solid when nothing is certain, the one who doesn't chase what pulls away, the one who sees silence as a mirror, not a threat. Emotional silence, in its rawest form, is not a punishment. It's a mirror held up to your emotional maturity. It's the space where your insecurities are revealed and where your strength can be born, if you're willing to face it. Most men don't. Most men react. They reach out, they beg, they explain. They try to force clarity from someone who's chosen not to speak. But in doing so, they lose the very thing they were being tested on, their center. The truth is, this silence was never about her. It's about you. It's about whether you'll define yourself through loss or through stillness, whether you'll collapse in the space she leaves behind or expand into it. And if you do choose to rise in that space, you'll become someone new, someone stronger, someone calmer, someone who doesn't just survive silence, but grows in it. Because the man who learns to stay present when everything else pulls away, that's the man who becomes unforgettable. Not every silence means goodbye. Some are permanent, others are calculated, and if you don't know the difference, you'll chase the wrong woman and lose yourself in the process. There's a sharp but often overlooked distinction between a woman who has truly moved on and a woman who is silently watching. One offers finality, the other uncertainty. And if you don't understand the difference, you'll respond to both the same way, and that's how many men lose their composure and their power. Real closure is brutal in its clarity. She blocks you, deletes every photo, unfollows you, cuts every string. Her actions are not just loud, they're absolute. It hurts, but at least you know where you stand. There are no questions left. That kind of silence is final. It's meant to create distance that can't be misread, and in a strange way, there's peace in that. The heartbreak is real, but so is the answer. But strategic silence, that's a different storm. She doesn't block you. In fact, she stays just visible enough for you to feel her presence without her ever directly engaging. She watches your stories, likes an old photo, posts a vague quote about heartbreak or growth, something that feels like it was pulled from the pages of your story together. These aren't accidents, they're calculated fragments of emotional residue. She wants to be felt without being vulnerable, to be noticed without asking. It's her way of staying relevant in your mind, not by reaching out, but by pulling you in through suggestion and symbolism. She's not closing the book. She's leaving the last page half-written, and you're left reading between the lines. This is where the trap begins. She left the door slightly open. That's not an invitation. That's a trap. It feels like hope, like a spark still flickering in the ashes. But in reality, it's a psychological test, a space she leaves open not for you to walk through, but to see if you will. Because how you respond to that door being ajar tells her everything she needs to know. If you rush in, start texting again, reacting emotionally to every post, every breadcrumb, what you're showing isn't confidence, it's need, it's fear. It's a man looking for something outside of himself to feel stable again. And that's not attractive. It's not secure. It's not the energy of a man who leads. The hard truth is this: strategic silence is not meant to be solved. It's not an invitation to act. It's an invitation to observe, to sit with discomfort, to remain grounded in the face of ambiguity. It's a mirror, not a message. And if you misunderstand it, if you believe every subtle post is a call for you to return, you'll walk right into a cycle of overthinking, chasing, and emotional exhaustion. So what should you do? You acknowledge that the door is open, but you don't step through it. You notice the signs, but you don't chase their meaning. You understand that she may still be emotionally connected, but you also know that the strength of a man is not proven by how quickly he reacts, but by how long he can hold steady. There is great power in restraint, in not needing to decode every move she makes, in not rushing to fix what hasn't been clearly broken. Because the moment you chase closure in a space that was never closed to begin with, you trap yourself in someone else's emotional limbo. Strategic silence is a test of your emotional frame, a test of your patience, of your clarity. It's designed to see if you can sit with the unknown without reaching for validation. And most of all, it's meant to reveal this. Can you still lead your life, build yourself, and stay present even when you don't have all the answers? That's the real challenge. Not chasing her down, but standing still when every part of you wants to react. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about who you are becoming than what she might be feeling. Because the man who sees the door slightly open and doesn't flinch, doesn't knock, doesn't beg to be let back in, that's the man who becomes unforgettable. Not because he did something grand, but because he chose stillness over chaos, because he chose presence over panic, because he chose himself. When a woman chooses silence yet stays emotionally present, it's not a random act, it's not indifference, and it's not an accident. It's a calculated balance between wanting to stay connected and needing to protect herself. Her silence may seem passive on the surface, but underneath it lives a complex emotional process driven by fear, pride, and curiosity. She doesn't reach out, but she watches. She doesn't speak, but she signals. She doesn't text, but somehow she still leaves her presence in your world. A story view here, a subtle like there, a song lyric, a quote about love, loss, or letting go. It all feels familiar, intentional, and it is. Because she wants to know something, not through words, but through your response to her absence. Do you still think about her? Will you reach out first? Will you break before she does? She may not be ready to hear the answers out loud, but she still wants them. What she's doing isn't manipulation, it's emotional self-preservation. Deep down, she's conflicted. She still feels something, but she doesn't want to appear vulnerable. She doesn't want to risk being the one who tries and gets met with silence in return. So she chooses breadcrumbs over confession, symbols over speech. She lets her behavior whisper what her pride won't allow her to say directly. She's asking without asking, "Who are you without me?" That's the heart of her silence. She's not just stepping back to see if you'll chase. She's stepping back to witness your relationship with yourself. Will you panic? Will you cling? Will you try to force a response just to soothe your own discomfort? Or will you stay calm, aware, steady? This is where emotional maturity gets tested, not by conflict, but by quiet. The irony is that while she's using silence to avoid risk, she's also hoping you'll show her something through your non-reaction. If you can hold your ground, if you can understand the message without dramatizing it, you reveal a depth that goes beyond the superficial back and forth most men fall into. You show her that your stability doesn't depend on her responses, and that's exactly the kind of man she can respect, even if she isn't ready to say it. But if you react too quickly, too emotionally, if you start trying to interpret every lyric she posts or message her after every cryptic quote, you validate her fears. You confirm that you're driven by emotion, not by center, that you still need something from her to feel whole. What she wants, deep down, is to feel emotionally safe. And if you can't show her that you're safe within yourself, that you don't need her presence to hold your frame, then she won't feel safe enough to return to the connection, even if she misses it. This is the paradox of silence. She steps back hoping you'll notice her in the quiet, but she also needs to know you won't unravel in it. So the question becomes, can you see her silence for what it is? Can you understand her need to shield herself without taking it personally? Can you let her watch without putting on a performance? Because when you stay grounded in the face of her silence, you communicate more than reassurance. You communicate strength. Not the loud kind, not the reactive kind, but the still, steady kind that says, "I don't need you to speak for me to understand you, and I don't need your attention to remain who I am." That's what she's really watching for. Not your affection, but your awareness. Not your longing, but your leadership. And when you pass that unspoken test, she'll feel it, not in her mind, but in her gut. Because for a woman who fears emotional risk, nothing speaks louder than a man who doesn't flinch when she goes quiet. She doesn't want you to chase her. She wants to feel that if she turns around, you'll still be there, but not waiting, standing, whole, and already becoming more. When a woman withdraws into silence, most men react, not with presence, but with panic. The stillness unnerves them, the ambiguity eats at them, and so they do what feels natural when they don't understand what's happening. They try to fix it. They write long, emotionally loaded messages, pouring out explanations and apologies for things she never asked to be repaired. They send texts that scream, "Look at me," even when she's clearly chosen to step back. They try to prove their worth through over-communication, hoping that if they just say the right thing, she'll come back. But this is where the unraveling begins, because in the desperate attempt to fix the silence, they betray something far deeper. They reveal how little inner ground they stand on. You don't fix her silence by filling it. You don't reclaim her attention by overwhelming her with yours. And most importantly, you don't need to fix her silence. You're supposed to learn from it. That silence wasn't an error in the connection. It's not a broken circuit that needs rewiring. It's a test of your maturity, of your restraint, of your ability to be still when you don't have control. Because when you panic, when you push, when you beg for clarity, what you show isn't care, it's fear. And no woman feels safe re-entering a space ruled by emotional instability. What many men fail to realize is this: her silence is rarely about punishing you. It's about observing you. And how you behave in her absence says far more than how you behaved when she was right in front of you. Stop trying to control her behavior and start observing yours. If her silence crushes you, if it drives you into overthinking, over-explaining, overreaching, then that reaction isn't her responsibility, it's yours. Because that silence, uncomfortable as it is, holds up a mirror. It doesn't just reflect where she stands, it reflects where you're lacking. And in that reflection, you'll find the exact place your emotional work begins. This is where most men lose not just the woman, but themselves. They believe action will win her back, when in reality it's restraint that draws respect. They believe words will repair the distance, when it's presence and poise that speaks loudest. So if you're tempted to send that one last message, don't. If you feel the urge to explain yourself just to get a reply, pause, not for her, but for you. Because the moment you stop trying to fix what isn't yours to control is the moment you begin to reclaim what is, your frame, your clarity, your strength. And that's the man she'll remember, not the one who panicked in her silence, but the one who grew because of it. When most men feel the sting of silence, they rush to fill the void. They act from discomfort, not clarity. They reach out too soon, say too much, or do too little of what truly matters, looking inward. But the man grounded in Stoicism moves differently. He doesn't react to absence with desperation. He doesn't interpret silence as a call to action. He understands that the space she leaves behind isn't abandonment, it's a mirror, an invitation to go deeper into himself. This man doesn't chase answers. He becomes one. He doesn't break the silence with noise. He breaks his old patterns with stillness. The Stoic man reflects, not because he lacks emotion, but because he refuses to let emotion drive the wheel. Where others spiral in uncertainty, he sharpens in it. Where others flinch, he holds firm. He recognizes that silence isn't something to fight against. It's something to grow inside. He knows this one truth. You become the man who doesn't flinch at uncertainty. That's where strength is forged, not in clarity, but in chaos. And the kind of man who earns deep, lasting respect isn't the one who scrambles to re-establish connection. It's the one who remains composed while others fall apart. The one who doesn't need to be reassured in order to stay centered, because he knows who he is, even when no one else is affirming it. There's a presence in him that can't be shaken. It's not performance. It's not silence used as strategy. It's silence that speaks of self-trust. He doesn't need to prove he's unfazed. His life already shows it. His actions, his discipline, the way he carries himself while the rest of the world wonders what's going on in his head. That's what makes him magnetic. When a woman withdraws and he chooses not to chase, not out of pride, but out of peace, she notices. Not because he's trying to get her attention, but because he's the one man who doesn't need it to remain powerful. That's not apathy. That's mastery. It's not that he feels nothing. It's that he refuses to be governed by emotion alone. He uses it as a compass, not a dictator. He understands that stillness isn't passive. It's intentional. It's the ground from which clarity is born. This is what makes the Stoic response so rare. It doesn't seek a reaction. It doesn't attempt to control or correct. It simply exists with calm intensity. It says, I'm still here, not because I'm waiting, but because I've already chosen who I am, regardless of what you decide. That kind of energy doesn't demand respect. It attracts it. So when the silence comes, and it will, you don't need to rise to meet it with movement. You rise by not moving, by holding your posture, by anchoring deeper into the man you're becoming, not flailing to recover the one she remembers. Because the moment you stop responding to her absence and start responding to your own becoming, you don't just regain your peace, you command hers. What you do when she goes silent will say more about you than anything you ever said while she was still listening. When a woman pulls away into silence, it's not just about distance, it's about observation. She isn't only stepping back to see if you'll reach out, she's stepping back to see how you carry yourself in her absence, whether you crumble without her validation or stand calmly rooted in your own identity. Because silence, more than words, reveals the truth about a man's center. Most men see that silence as something to fix. They believe the right text, the right explanation, the right gesture might bring her back. But what they don't realize is that she's not waiting for performance. She's watching for presence, not in what you say, but in how you hold your ground when nothing is being said. That's why these moments matter. Your self-worth is not measured when things are going well, when affection is flowing, when attention is steady, when praise is present. Those are easy moments to appear composed, but true character? It gets exposed in the quiet, in the uncertainty, in the moments when the echo is louder than the voice. Her silence does not define you, your reaction to it does. That sentence is more than a reminder, it's a compass. Because how you choose to respond to her silence says far more than any message you could send. If you rush in to fill the gap, you show that your peace depends on external approval. If you withdraw in bitterness, you reveal that your strength was never yours to begin with. But if you remain still, not cold, not indifferent, but grounded, you communicate something she can feel, even from a distance: self-respect. And here's what many men overlook: that kind of quiet confidence. It doesn't chase attention, it commands it, without noise, without effort, without reaching. It radiates not from words, but from energy. From how you show up in your own life when no one's clapping. From how deeply you can trust yourself when no one else is affirming you. That kind of presence leaves an imprint. It lingers. A woman may forget the texts you sent, She may forget the things you said in frustration or longing, but she will remember how you handled the moment she went silent. She will remember whether you reached for her out of panic, or if you stood firm in the man you were already becoming. And the truth is, your reaction in these moments isn't just about her. It's about you. It's about breaking the pattern of chasing validation. About proving to yourself that you can stay rooted even when the winds of emotion try to shake you loose. About learning to find your reflection in your response, not in her return. So no, don't panic, don't punish, don't perform, just pause. Observe what the silence is showing you, not about her, but about you, and then choose to respond from clarity, not chaos. Because that's where your real power lives, not in proving your worth to someone else, but in finally remembering it for yourself. There's something profoundly unsettling for her when she expects your reaction and it never comes. When she withdraws, she might expect confusion, urgency, or even emotional chaos. That's what she's seen before. She knows how men usually behave when the silence begins. They reach, they overcompensate. They try to reclaim her presence by flooding the space she left behind with texts, likes, cryptic stories, or passive signals designed to pull her attention back. And in most cases, it works, at least in the short term. But what she doesn't expect is your stillness. She doesn't expect you to carry on, not in bitterness, not in arrogance, but in quiet calm. She doesn't expect you to stay present in your own life, to keep showing up for yourself without making your emotional stability dependent on her return. And when that happens, when you don't spiral, don't chase, don't perform, it disrupts everything she thought she understood about you and about herself. When she sees you didn't spiral, that's when silence speaks louder than any text ever could. That moment, when she feels your absence, but not your desperation, is when the power shifts. Because now, instead of feeling reassured that you're still emotionally tied to her, she starts questioning her own silence. She wonders what changed in you. She starts remembering who you were and wondering who you've become. Because the man who doesn't flinch when she disappears is a man she may not have fully known. This kind of centered energy is rare. It's not indifference, it's emotional intelligence. It's not game playing, it's self-leadership. You didn't go dark to punish her. You didn't withhold to manipulate. You simply didn't lose yourself. You chose not to confuse motion with meaning. You lived, you worked, you trained, you healed, you moved with quiet consistency. And that kind of restraint doesn't just command respect, it creates mystery, because silence handled with strength leaves a deeper impression than words ever could. When you stay centered, you allow space for her to feel the absence, not of your noise, but of your presence. And it's your presence that leaves a void, not your attention, not your reactions, not your attempts to provoke her. The steadiness you chose becomes louder than any argument. The peace you held becomes more attractive than any pursuit. Most men don't reach this place. They're either trying too hard to get her back or pretending they no longer care. But a man who lives with quiet strength, who lets her go without needing to prove anything, that man is unforgettable. Not because he played it cool, but because he was cool. Not performatively, but internally. Earned, grounded, real. She expected emotion. She met stability. She expected noise. She found presence. She expected a version of you that relied on her to feel whole. And now she sees someone who doesn't just survive the silence, but owns it. And that contrast, that changes everything. Because while she was trying to figure out what to say, you were showing her, without ever saying a word, that the man you've become isn't waiting. He's walking, not away from her, but toward himself. Summary. At some point in this journey, you come to realize that it was never truly about her. Not about what she feels or whether she comes back. Not about fixing the connection or decoding her silence. What this was always about was you. Not the man you were when she left, but the man you could become in her absence. Her silence didn't break you. It revealed you. It stretched open a space between who you were and who you had the potential to be. And in that space you had a choice: shrink or expand, wait or evolve, desperately reach for someone to save you, or quietly, steadily rise into someone who doesn't need saving at all. And that's why her silence was never the enemy. It was the teacher, the uncomfortable but necessary mirror you needed to face everything you had avoided. It didn't come to destroy you. It came to awaken you, to strip away your illusions, to take away the noise, the constant feedback, the comfort of being seen, so that you could finally see yourself. Yes, you wanted her back. That's human. But now, if you've been doing the work, you know something deeper. The most powerful thing that can come out of this isn't reconciliation, it's reclamation. If she never returns, you still win if you use this journey to become more. That's the truth most men avoid. They treat growth like a strategy to win her back, as if becoming better is just a tool to make her regret leaving. But that's not real growth. That's manipulation in disguise, and it always crumbles, because when growth is tied to her reaction, it's still about her. The shift happens when you let go of that outcome, when you realize that the man you're becoming isn't for her. He's for you. He's the man you were always meant to be, but couldn't find while you were still living through someone else's validation. And once you touch that version of yourself, once you taste that strength, you understand why going back isn't an option. Because once you've tasted your own strength, there's no going back. You're no longer waiting for her to see your worth. You see it. You no longer need her response to feel real. You've built something inside that silence that doesn't disappear when the conversation ends. Something lasting, something unshakable. That's the point. Not to become the version of yourself that wins her back, but the version who doesn't need to. The version who could look her in the eye tomorrow, whether she returns or not, and remain whole. Because the greatest realization in this entire process is this: you were never waiting on her. You were waiting on you, waiting on the man inside you to wake up, to stop seeking peace in someone else's presence, to stop handing your power to people who could walk away, to stand, finally, not in pursuit, but in presence. And now that you've met him, you'll never want to be anyone else again. If something in this message touched you, let it echo forward. Drop a comment, like the video, and subscribe to Stoic Station. Don't just watch, stand for something. Support this space, so it can reach the next man, the one who's searching in silence, just like you once were. You're not only transforming your own life, you're lighting the way for someone else. Stay steady, stay present, and remember, the man who stops waiting is the man who begins becoming.